Hello, I'm me, you're you, this is a YouTube video, and today I want to talk about how much film technology and techniques have changed, and how much they might change in the future, and how this might, mainly, how this might affect how people watch films in the future, and what films they watch. You know, when you think about how much things have changed since this to this, which might not be the best example because one's a horror film and the other's an action film, but you get the point. I chose those because, you know, Dracula is one of the oldest films in my collection, and Pacific Rim is one of the newer ones, and Movie Bob over on The Escapist once said about Pacific Rim that it was funny how in a time where people were trying to have complex plots, and well, some people are trying to have complex plots, and particularly in his year-end top 10 list, all of the things on there with like you know, really deep, trying to put across a deep message and all of this stuff. It was really the simplistic giant monsters versus giant robots movie that he felt was the movie of the future, which baffled me at first, but then I think about it, and yeah, you could see how from a movie technology point of view, this could be seen as a movie of the future, because there's shit tons of green screen in it, and CGI. Most of the fight scenes, I would imagine, are mostly CGI, you know, and I love practical effects, but there comes a time when our CGI gets so great that there's just no reason not to use it, especially for big, really big, large-scale action scenes that would be completely impossible to do with a practical effect, or at least not viable to do. You know, and you get like, I need to secure my train of thought. But yeah, like I'm saying, that sort of usage and the fact that it works, you know, because we've had tons of movies that had, you know, excessive use of CGI in action scenes, you know, and they were terrible. And this is a film in which we have mostly CGI, and it works. You know, this is a film that understands how to use CGI, and in that, yeah, you could think of it as the movie of the future. Now, this got me thinking, because your typical film audience, you know, and I'm not being a hipster here, I hate hipsters. You know, being a hipster is the attitude of finding something new and unique and unpopular and deciding it needs to remain that way. You know, it needs to remain underground to protect it from the evil forces of the mainstream, you know, and you know, and that sucks. You know, when I find something new or old, just plain unpopular, and it's good and it's really good, I want it to get out there. I want more people to see this shit. You know, but most mainstream audience would, when going through HMV or something, would look at something like this and be like, what? You know, it's in black and white. Dracula? Are you kidding me? You know, the thing that kids dress up as in, you know, at Halloween? Really? You know, fuck this shit. I'm gonna get, you know, a newer horror movie or whatever. You know, a lot of audiences would just snap this off instantly because, yeah, the technology is outdated, and so are the techniques, to be honest. You know, I mean, Dracula is a classic. You know, a lot of the Universal monster movies I would consider to be classics, but they are not perfect because we're still talking fairly early in the art of cinema, and definitely fairly early in the art of talking cinema, of cinema with sound. And, you know, it takes a certain amount of time. You know, it's hard to be that pioneer. It's hard to be that person to take the first step onto that new field of media because, you know, you haven't got past examples to build on. You haven't got established theories to use. So, yeah, a film like Dracula, yeah, it does have flaws. You know, and it would seem all the more flawed today because some of these flaws are obvious. You know, some of the sound just is not right, or it's too loud, or stuff like that. And some of the acting is horribly cheesy, and, you know, stuff like even stuff like script writing improves as we're able to educate people more on past examples. You know. So, yeah, a film back then, you know, it does have a lot of objective problems, but it's still classic. I want to be very clear about this. It still stands up with some of the greatest films of today. You know, but then you think, if we come from that to this, you know, a thoroughly modern action movie, then how much further is it going to go? I mean, you know, I want to believe that 3D is a gimmick. I really do. You know, I don't want to have to I don't want to have to go to a different weird time at the cinema just to see the 2D version. I certainly don't want to get to a point in time where you can't choose the 2D version. It's all 3D. You know, and stuff like The Hobbit not having as good effects because it needs to cater for the 3D and be shot in 3D. You know, that's still a problem. But maybe one day it won't be. But fact is, 3D is here to stay. You know, whether it will one day completely take over remains to be seen. I hope to hell not. Or at least to the point that it does, it takes over because it's simply so easy to do and so easy to show the problems with the ticket prices being way too high or the production prices being way too high, you know, to make real good, proper 3D. You know, all those problems have been solved. I hope that if 3D ever takes over, we're not doing it before 3D is actually ready to take over. But, you know, it's possible. You know, let's say, for the sake of argument, we get to some point in the future where every film is in 3D, every TV is in 3D. You know, maybe TVs can show 2D signals, but nobody uses them anymore because everything's in fucking 3D. Imagine somebody who had grown up with 3D movies, who had literally, they had known nothing else. You know, when they watched children's television, it was all in 3D. You know, the thought, to someone like that, the thought of watching a movie in 3D might be similar to the feeling of a mainstream modern audience to watching a black and white film. You know, and pretentious art critics can say what they like about black and white. You know, I can agree that in some cases it can work in favor of the film. But make no mistake, there's a reason that you don't see many black and white films modernly released anymore. Because, fuck, we see in color, why wouldn't we want to watch a movie in color? You know. and other things might have changed as well in the future. You might have photorealistic CGI. You know, if they remade Pacific Rim in the future, you might actually be able to believe that Gypsy Danger was a real thing. You know, you might actually not be able to tell the difference. You know, whereas the effects in Pacific Rim are very good, nobody's going to believe. You know, nobody's going to have that niggling doubt in their mind that maybe somewhere Guillermo del Toro just has these giant fucking robots stored away. Which is a hilarious sport, actually, but, you know. And that makes me sad. It already makes me sad now that there aren't many people outside of, you know, film fanatics who will willingly watch a black and white film. You know, I mean, I can understand, like I said, you know, I mean, I wasn't around when black and white was still a big thing, so, of course, I grew up with color, so I can understand that at first the thought of just watching a black and white film is just like, well, you know, it's never gonna match up. You know, so I understand that people wouldn't be willing to, but they're missing out on a lot of classics, and it saddens me to think that at some point in the future, kids will be going through a DVD store, fucking, I don't know, then, as much as I don't like it, there's a very real possibility that there won't be DVD stores anymore, it'll all be online, but they'll be looking through the screenshots of, in previews of the movie on their fucking Netflix Ultra account, or whatever, and they'll think, well, what the fuck, I think my TV's busted, you know, it's not showing me in 3D. Oh wait, this film isn't in 3D? What, you film in 2D? What am I, a fucking animal? You know, it may get to that point, and that fucking depresses me. You know, that really fucking depresses me, that I'm sure that the films will still stand up. You know, there'll be some that don't stand up. You know, for example, I'm really not sure what's going to happen to Pirates of the Caribbean in the future, because, let's face it, Pirates of the Caribbean is a very, very good, you know, action adventure. Well, at least the first one is. But was it really anything special? You know, it's quotable, maybe it'll stay in the public consciousness for ages, but something like Star Wars will stay in the public consciousness forever, simply because the merchandise machine behind it is too big to die. You know, it'll go on. It'll go on and on and on. People keep buying games of it, and people keep buying action figures, and they'll tell their kids about it, and they'll show the films to their fucking kids. And really, that's the only chance we have of keeping the older films alive. Showing them to our fucking kids. You know, and reminding them that, yes, there was once a time when we didn't have, where, you know, as good the effects were, you wouldn't believe that they were there. And, you know, and there was a time when all of our movies, not all of our movies were in 3D. And all of that. And yeah, there was a time when you couldn't get all your movies on Netflix. You know, there were some you had to go outside in the real world and look through a store, and you had to actually look with your eyes. You couldn't just, there was no search bar. You know, really, that's the only hope we have, to pass these films on to the future generation and encourage them to give something older a chance. You know, because once they do, pretty sure that there's plenty of films now that should be considered classics forever. You know, or as, of course, one of, humanity endures. But I'm not going to get into philosophy today because I'm trying to make shorter videos, and this is already at 15 minutes, over 15 minutes. So, that was my bullshit. I'll see you next time.